Welcome to the Decide to Move podcast, helping entrepreneurs like you make smart, pivotal shifts in your life and business. Tune in each episode for inspiring stories from brilliant business minds and trailblazers to find out how they made their big moves and how you can too. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M.Bijoux.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Decide to Move podcast. And I have a guest that's with me today. He's all the way in Malaysia. He's not from Malaysia, but he's currently residing there, living the life, living the dream. I have with me a man that has went from a broken home to a seven-figure entrepreneur who travels the world and uses simplicity to get what we all want, which is freedom. And basically his philosophy on life and business is that if he can make it simple, easy, and fun, then he's doing it. And so without further ado, I would like you to meet my next guest, Jermane. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Monica, for having me.
Most definitely, most definitely. So if you can introduce yourself to my audience, my listeners, as well as yours, tell them who you are and what all do you do?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur. My main thing in life has always been freedom. Freedom of my mind, freedom of my location, freedom of identity, freedom of financial freedom. So that's always been my thing. So I just found the best catalyst for me to obtain that is through business and through entrepreneurship. And because in order to succeed in business and entrepreneurship, you got to have your mind right. And you got to be open and you got to be receptive and you got to be fluid. So I was just lucky that kind of sales and business and entrepreneurship kind of fell in my lap.
Now, has that always been your path, or is there something that made you decide that this is the entrepreneur is what you want to go for?
I think it's always been my path, but I didn't know that was my path. I thought I was a bad communicator growing up. I thought I wasn't going to be accepted. People didn't like me. People would never buy anything from me. So I always thought it'd be like in some cubicle crunching numbers, not talking to anybody, like maybe being an accountant or something. But I had to kind of defy that narrative and decide, what's true about this? Am I really not likable? Am I really going to be not accepted? And so the best path for me to kind of defy that narrative is just going to sales. Because, knocking on doors, making cold calls, you're going to find out really quick what the truth is. And I realized that was just a BS story I was telling myself. And that's usually everyone's limiting factors is this fake stories that you make up based on your religion or your color or your nation or your gender or whatever it is. And, business helped me see clearly that that's all that was a weird narrative that I made up in my mind.
Yeah, and that's something we're going to be talking about today is fear and identity. And I'm so interested in understanding and hearing your viewpoint of how those two are connected. But where was it or what prompted you or got you to the place where you felt as if you were not good enough and that no one, cared, like was going to buy anything from you? Where did your narrative start?
So my narrative started just coming from a broken home, single parent raising. My mom raised me and my grandmother raised me. So I always figured to myself, I think I was trying to figure out the world and like how to orient myself to the world. And I was always trying to, and so I'm half black, half white. So I was raised by white women. And here I am, as far as the world looks at me, I'm a black male. So I always had these questions in my mind about, what's the truth about this whole race thing and about male and female identity and gender? What's the truth about people? Like, for example, if someone's father can leave a home and basically abandon your family, what does that say about the rest of society at large? What would they do to a stranger? And so it made me kind of wrestle with these ideas of, like what's true about life, about myself, about my narrative. And so I was faced with those facts at a very young age. And so it made me really curious and to explore like what's the truth for myself versus like just listen to what everybody else's narrative is, or even listen to my own narrative that I made up that is usually based on like false ideas.
Yeah, most definitely. And, I've actually heard a lot of people say that coming from different backgrounds. I'm Creole. I have French, Indian, and African. And I often, like when I was born in Louisiana, so I didn't speak. My mother always corrected us. I always joke and say, if I came out going, she'd be like, it's pronounce that cry. And, when I would go home, like people will be like, or you think you're this, or you think you're that, because I did not speak the language. And oftentimes I didn't understand what they said. Now I do speak fast, which is, the Louisiana way, but my mother just always made us, stop and pronunciate things, articulate yourself clearly so people understand what you're saying, not to say that it's a certain race's language. It's so that way you can be understood and be heard. And so having that different identity around your own makeup makes it very difficult. And you do create stories based on the way people are looking at you, or the way that people perceive you, or just even their interaction with you.
Yeah, it's very true. And you have to kind of realize that's not, you can't worry about other people. Like, you have to realize people are going to receive you the way they're going to receive you. That has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with them. Because at the end of the day, life is a mirror. And so just because they're reflecting their negativity or their biases or whatever it is going on within them, doesn't mean you have to buy into that narrative or that reflection, because they're just in pain. They're just struggling with something. It's never about you are the problem or you're not good enough. Is they're struggling with something they're trying to figure out. And at the end of the day, you kind of have to feel a sense of empathy and kind of like, I get where you're coming from. They're just lost at this point.
Yeah, I've actually always say that when people tell me what I can and cannot do, or what, I'm like, that's your limitation. I see that you're attempting to place your limitation on me. And so I will definitely not, like, I'll be there to support you, be there to help you, but I can't identify with that and limit my own abilities based on somebody else's limitation. And I've seen that happen a lot. Is that have that been your experience as well?
Well, yeah, like when I started my business, a lot of people, friends and family were scared for me. They're like, well, why would you do that? Why would you leave a steady, secure job? And that's their fear. That's not my fear. But they're trying to get me on their same level. And that's just how humans interact. Misery loves company. So they want people to be on their same level. Like, if they're doing something, they want you to do it. It's just the way humans are. So you have to recognize that, be aware enough to see, oh, they just want me to drag me to their sphere, but I'm not going there, because I'm not going to be afraid of this unknown, because who cares? I'm going to die. It doesn't matter. Like, you might as well go after what you want in life, because we all die. Like, so I don't want to be 90 years old in my rocking chair being like, oh, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z. I'm just going to do it because it doesn't matter. The cool thing about things that don't matter, because everything doesn't matter, like nothing at all matters. Like, everything doesn't matter. When you have that mindset, you realize you can actually pursue the things that do matter to you, because you don't have this fear that holds you back of, oh, what if? You just do it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your what you want to talk about when it comes to fear and identity. How do you see those two really impacting one another?
Well, I think the biggest problem with identity is you're boxed in. You're siloed into this narrative, either that society creates for you or you create for yourself. And then when you're boxed in with this narrative, you can't grow out of it, because everyone wants to be congruent with who they used to be. No one wants to be a Republican, all of a sudden become Democrat. It's just, people don't like flip-flopping, because it looks like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing. There's no integrity within that person. So that's the problem with identity, is it boxes you in. So a lot of fear comes from identity, where I can't become a baker because I'm an entrepreneur, or I can't become a restaurant owner because I'm an attorney, because my identity is trapped in this attorney body, but I really want to be a baker. And so the fear and identity go hand in hand. When you let go of identity and you're just a human being here on the spinning planet, wherever you are in the world, and you have all this opportunity to seize it and take advantage of it and build whatever the hell you want to build, that's when the fear dissipates and you actually move towards your goals. Because for some reason, humans love to not focus on where they want to go. They love focusing on where they don't want to go. It's like one of the dumbest things ever. And so you always ask people, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't want to do that. Well, come on, like, what do you want to do? And so I think the problem with identity is it keeps people boxed in, and their fear grows and grows and grows when you're attached to an identity, whatever that identity is.
Yeah, and and one thing that you had said too was like, when I've run into people that mostly focus on what they don't want, and then when I ask them, like, as a therapist, I'll say, okay, well, what do you want? It's like, I don't know. They can give me a laundry list of what they don't want, but then when it comes to them actually saying what they want, or even who they are, I find that happening a lot. Like, well, who are you? And well, I never thought about that. And it's like, how are you like this age and this far in your life and you don't have no clue of who you are, what you want, because you spent so much time focusing on what you don't want to be, you're attracting all the negative things that you don't want, and so I've often find that so strange that that's where people focus on, and they always tell me, you've accomplished so much. I'm like, because I'm focused on what I want to do and what direction I'm going, not what I don't want to have, and don't, like, that's not even part of my vocabulary. If I want to do it, I'm gonna do it. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like I think we get bogged down in like focusing on distractions. So if like everyone's scrolling through the social media feeds, they're not looking for the good news, they're looking for the bad news, so they can focus on like what they don't want. I don't want him as president. I don't want this to happen. Versus like, why are you on Instagram looking at this? Like, use it for good, not for just to focus on things you don't want. And I think most of us, we waste our life focusing on distractions and things we don't want instead of creating space to focus on having room for new things to come in. For me, I've been so lucky because I've been open-minded and curious about life. So I've never had any dogmatic like plans or goals. I don't believe in goals. I believe in processes. And so I've been like, how did I get to Malaysia? I don't know. I didn't plan this. I just went with the flow. How did I start a business? I didn't plan it. I just did it. I don't plan my life out. I just let life let life present whatever it's going to present in front of me, and I decide if I'm going to take advantage of that because I created space to see if it's something I want to pursue, not something I'm trying to avoid. And like all the things I've created in my life was just me challenging my narrative of fear. And so I always have a saying: I follow my fear, because it's life telling me that's the direction I need to go in.
I like that. So can you give some tips and strategies or something for someone who is currently listening and they are struggling with their fears? And that's one of the things they've always done, was focused on the negative, and they really don't have that direction. Because like, my brand is all about people making pivotal shifts in their life. That means going to the next level or changing the direction of where they are. So if they're ready to make that shift, that change, what do you recommend when they're stuck, bounded by fear?
Well, number one, you have to take action. Action dissipates fear instantly. All of fear is the anticipation of action. It's thinking about making the phone call. It's not making the phone call. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about asking the girl out on the date. It's not actually talking to her. So it's like, it's all the anticipation of the fear is really where the problem lies. When you actually do the action, it just goes away. So that's number one. Number two, I would create space in your life to write down like what your fears are. Like, what are you afraid of? Like, what are you scared of? Are you afraid of being seen? Are you afraid of starting the business? And then why? Like, why are you afraid of it? And then sometimes it's good for me personally is to label my fears. Like, oh, Jermaine's upset. Like, I literally create space if I say Jermaine's upset, or Jermaine's pissed off, or Jermaine's scared, or Jermaine's frustrated, or Jermaine's upset about the deal going sideways. Then I almost get space for my subconscious, or who I really am, to realize, oh, this entity called Jermane is upset, but it's not really who I am. That's just some facade I built. So it gives me enough space to see it clearly, like, that doesn't matter that he's upset. Let him be upset if he wants to be upset. But knowing my true nature inside is calm, it's peaceful, it's like the ocean. So those are just kind of couple things that come to mind right now.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, when you talk about writing things down, I tell people that all the time, like, write it out. Like, even if you write one little sentence of, I'm frustrated, get it out of you. Why hold on to it? Like, figure out what it is and then just move forward. That thing no longer has a hold of you when you are able to let it go, which is so huge. So I love the fact of how you create space. Like you said, I actually tell people that all the time, create space. Just allow yourself to create that space, and then you'll see what happens. And I can honestly say, like, just based on some of the things that, like in my life, it's about me creating space enough for those things to come along. But when people are very rigid and don't allow space to happen, I mean, they miss out on a lot of opportunities. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of practices. Like, I'll do a brain dump first thing in the morning, where I'll just write down whatever I'm feeling. I'm frustrated, my jaw's tight, I didn't sleep good, I'm tired, I'm nervous about the phone call, I want to check my emails, what's going on social media. I'll just write everything down just to get it out of my system, and then look at it from like stand back from it and look at it clearly, like, oh, that's just nonsense. This is noise. But at least it's out of me. It's somewhere. I compartmentalized it to a certain degree, and then I can go on with my day to realize I don't need to check the email right now. It's not important to me. I already wrote that down. It's done. And so it gives me this clarity and like almost like a relief off my back, where I actually realized what was bothering me, and I wrote it down and I kind of let it be. I'll do that in the morning. Sometimes I'll do that at night before I go to bed. And then on Sundays, I have like a digital detox day. The entire day, I don't touch my cell phone or my laptop. Some days I don't even listen to music. I won't even read books. I won't do nothing except for have a pen and paper with me. And I'll just write down like ideas that kind of come to me from all the information I digested from the week. Because we get like so much information, so much, data is coming into us all the time with, computers and technology. So it gives me a chance to reflect on like what was, like I have a saying, the good shit sticks. I don't have to worry about remembering it because the good shit does stick, and it'll come back to you on that Sunday where you can write it out and like, oh yeah, I am going to build that business. I am going to make that phone call. I am going to whatever. And it just gives you a space and time, like we were talking about space, to figure out like, where do I want to go? What do I want to build? What kind of business do I want to have? Where do I want to live? What do I believe in? But if you don't take the time, you're just going to be kind of a sheep to whatever else everyone else is doing.
Yeah, you actually did a practice that I do, brain dumping. That is like one of my favorite things in the world, to do brain dumping. But the other thing that you mentioned that I absolutely love is basically digital detoxing. I actually went to a training, and it was just so hilarious because he was talking about like addictions and just a lot of things that we are addicted to. And so he was like, before I begin this presentation, I want every last one of you to put your phone away, and like you have a laptop, close your laptop, anything electronic, I want you to put away. And like, I literally seen the anxiety. It was so heavy in the room. Like, and these were all professionals, because like as a therapist, you have to go to these professional conferences. And these are people who are actually teaching other people about their addictions. And they were like, it was so, I was cracking up laughing because it was just watching them. And so he went through we use a DSM-4 or DSM-5 now, but he went through the guidelines that we use to say if somebody's addicted. And it's kind of like, do you use it longer than you normally have in the past? Do you find yourself like you're having sweats or having trouble if you can't? Like he went through it, and you should have seen people. It was just, to me, so hilarious that people actually need to spend more time doing digital detoxing. So I actually am going to incorporate the full Sunday. I usually do like a certain time in the evening that I don't use my phone, but I think taking a whole day to do that, I would definitely get some more writing done too. So those that are listening, if you're talking about being a writer, putting that phone away, doing some digital detox that Jermane talked about will definitely help you have clarity and get some things accomplished.
Yeah, it's funny. On that Monday after the Sundays, I'm not even thinking about my laptop or my cell phone. Like I'll wake up and it'll be 2 or 3 hours and I'm not even touching it because I'm just sitting on the patio looking at the ocean, just like loving being alive. It's kind of weird. Like you get into the moment more. You're just like, there's nothing to get. There's nothing to obtain. There's nowhere to go. It's just once you can live from a place of being, then you create whatever you want. But you don't know what you want to create if you're not there.
Yeah. Yeah, that is some really good tips and strategies for people to really incorporate in their life, because so many people want to do so many different things, but they're distracted by social media and just so many other things. And there's so many other avenues. Like, that's why I love podcasting, because it gives me an opportunity that I'm still out there, but I'm actually able to connect with someone else instead of just myself, and oftentimes we do that. We no longer connect with people. People use COVID as an excuse, but I connect with people all the time. So, yeah. So when you're not distracted, you have true connections and true meaning to the people that you actually meet. So
yeah, it's kind of, I think it's kind of funny because you're right. If you're so connected to your devices, you're not living your life. Your life is passing you by, and all you're focusing on is other people, what other people are doing, what other people are sending you, what other emails are coming to you. You're being reactive 100% of the time, and you're not being proactive at all. You're watching Netflix, you're playing video games. Like, there's nothing about that is proactive. So it's like, And then you'll look back on your life and it's like, no wonder I didn't do the things I wanted to do. I mean, that's like the worst thing in the world. Like to sit back and just think about like, oh, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. It's just like, just do it. Like whatever it is. And to me, one of my visions for life is if everyone got clear on like what their special thing is, whatever that is, and just did it, I would be able to enjoy the fruits of what they love doing, and everyone gets to enjoy the fruits of it. So it's like, I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but I feel like the majority of people do things they don't want to do, trying to impress people they don't give a shit about.
Yep. And those people don't give a dang about them. And I live my life by doing the things I want to do. And when people attempt to, tell me that, I'm like, I don't want to do it. Why not? Because I don't want to. I don't owe you any explanation, and I'm not doing that. And it's kind of like where, you live, you're just free. You're able to just live. Like it's a free moment to have that space where you're just able to be and talk about happy. I tell people I sleep so good at night because I don't worry about other people's stuff. Like I'm too busy trying to get my little sleep in. I don't have time for that. So it's great. Something that I enjoy.
It's important, but you have to have radical accountability for your life. There's no one else's fault. Like I have a thing. I don't see black and white. I don't see male and female. I don't see American or Chinese or Democrat, Republican. I see creators and I see victims. That's it. So I don't care. I'm kind of like the MLK thing. I care about the content of your character. That's it. And so you get to choose what side of the fence you want to be on. You can be a creator of your future or you're a victim of your past and your present. I choose to be a creator. And so I think it's beautiful when people choose that and be accountable for whatever happens in their life. The only person to blame is you, no matter what happens. I don't care what it is. You have a choice to react to it and then move forward, whatever it might be.
Yeah. It's so funny because one of my slogans that I often say is that you can either be the fruit, I always say that it's kind of like you can be the fruit of your labor or the victim of your past. Like you make a decision, decide to move, stop letting your past be what holds you back. You can actually make a decision to move forward and allow yourself to be that creator, as you said, because we all know that when people have a victim mentality, they bring everyone else down around them, and they're mostly seeking for, sympathy or empathy or, and constantly pulling people in a negative way or talking about the next person or talking about what that person has. And, oh, you don't need that. You don't deserve that. They become naysayers, and it's such a negative place to be. And so I always tell people it's important to surround yourself around like-hearted and like-minded people and people who represent where you want to go and not where you're trying to run from, because you hold, crabs in a bucket. You know what they do? They pull you back and they pull you down when you're trying to go ahead. So I definitely am focused on moving forward. So you actually talk about creative and being creative, and you actually have a company called the Creative Learn.
Yeah. Creators Learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell more about what you do?
Well, so we always find a lot of people are successful by societal standards, but deep down, they're like very unsatisfied. So what we did is part of what my business does is we give those people an opportunity to create a simple blueprint where they can create a successful, 5-figure a month finance business, equipment finance business. And they can create their own terms, live life on their terms, create as much money as they want to, and create, more importantly, all the time and space they want to. And so that's what Creators Learn is a place for people that are looking for entrepreneur opportunities to go and explore the course we put together. It took over 13, 14 months to put together because I've been doing this for 17 years. And as I travel around the world, and I'm looking at the ocean right now, and I was like, I can't keep this a secret. It's not fair. I work 2 hours a day and I have all this free time and all this space to think about life and think about ideas and think about where I want to go. Other people should have this opportunity. They shouldn't be a slave to a job they don't like, to a cubicle, to limited income, to limited freedom and limited time. So we just gave this as an opportunity for people to learn about it, and hopefully we'll take advantage of it. So that's what Creators Learn is about.
Oh, nice. Because that was kind of your story as well. Like you actually were working for someone else at one time, and then you decided to make that switch.
Yeah, I was an employee. I was a zombie employee, and I was too scared to go out on my own. Like everyone is. I mean, fear is a real thing, but you just have to move past it and realize it's just an idea. And the fear couldn't hold me back any longer. Like the pain was too much for me to be an employee, to work for a boss, to tell me to come to this meeting and come in at this time. And I was just fed up. So yeah, I started my own business. And from that, I was able to like exponentially grow my income and then my free time. And then I was like, well, let's take a trip to Europe. And I took my mom to Europe for her 60th birthday. And I was over there and I was doing all my work and I was doing it from my laptop. I'm like, well, if I can do it here, I can do it anywhere. So then I started traveling. And then I'm like, I should share this with other people. Like we should make a program so that people can get on board if this is something they wanted to do. And it's not rocket science. I mean, it's literally just talking to people. It's 99% sales, but not a hard sale. It's just like, hey, this is what I do. If you're interested, let me know. And so we had to create it. So yeah, it's just like, you got to grow. That's my number one thing is like, I have no other choice but to grow. That's my why. I can't be a victim. So, and I'm like you, I'm allergic to victims. Like I will be myself before I'm around any victim mentality. And I get most of my influence, not really from people per se. I mean, people in the street or people at the grocery store are just normal people. I get a lot of influence from because I watch them very closely and see how they interact. And I learn about people I'm like that guy at the mall, just watching people all day. Because people are so interesting and so curious. But I get a lot of my influence from books, podcasts, YouTube. Like there's so much information out there that is good quality information. It's like, I don't like this whole thing about, oh, you need to go to college. No, you don't. Yeah, maybe if you want to be a doctor or an engineer, but there's so much free resources out there. It's crazy. So yeah, make sure you surround yourself with like good, positive influences, whether it's a podcast like this or a book or whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, most definitely. And I want to make sure that people find you and follow you. So I have your website. What are other ways that people can reach you or follow you?
Yeah, so Creators Learn is the best place, or you can message me on LinkedIn. I'm kind of a minimalist, so a digital minimalist too. So I don't really do the whole social media thing because it's like, when am I going to take a picture of my dinner? I don't care. And hope nobody else cares either, because you better start creating something. So yeah, LinkedIn, but mostly creatorslearn.com.
Okay, I will definitely make sure I put that in the show notes. And I'm laughing because I actually had somebody one time send me a picture of their food and I was just like, I just kind of I didn't respond, and they kind of was like, well, what do you thought or like, what are you eating for dinner? Send me a picture. And I'm like, no, I'm busy eating it. I'm not taking a picture of it. It's like, well, don't you take pictures of your food? If I go to a place that is exotic and I'm incorporating it in the entire experience, that's one thing. But just to be sitting there, like, I'm going to take a picture of my food, like, I don't have time for that. Like, I probably by the time I take the picture and the angle, I'm already halfway done. So no.
It's like, how bored are we that this is what we are relegated to, is taking pictures of our food? I mean, it's one thing if you're a chef or you're some type of, this is your profession, but I mean, it's everywhere though. I see it in Asia. I see it it's everywhere. It's not a good state for humanity. I'll tell you that much, because I don't know if it's just narcissism or it's just we're trying to be distracted and hopefully people like us, or I don't know what it is, but it's a problem.
Yeah, we've actually developed, and I see it more often than not, a very narcissistic society. And it's sad that, when it comes to that and everybody's into that, what about me? And putting people down and will trample on others in order to make themselves look good. And everything has to be centered around them and not bringing other people up. And for me, my podcast is strictly about helping and shine other guests and making them stand out and having a platform for them to be able to get their word out. And so, people say, well, you should do this or you should do that. I'm like, no, but that's not my brand. And I actually had one girl particularly says, I want to give you some feedback on your podcast. I said, do you have one? No. Okay. Well, when you get one, then put it to use there. And it's like, why are we so busy trying to be in other people's space? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, the main reason is because, like, I think the problem is we're not taking space to look at ourselves and what we want to grow and what we want to do, because it's too much pain. It's too painful. I think a lot of American society has been too coddled. So they're just kind of weak and just soft. And so they don't want to look at internally what I need to do to grow. So it's easier just to look at what you need to do to grow. Because you don't have to do the work. I don't have to do the work. You have to do the work. So it's just an easy escape. There's a funny saying. It's like, what is it? Easy choices, hard life, and hard choices, easy life. It's very true.
It is. I always just say what's easy is hard and what's hard is easy. I mean, simple as that. It takes a lot more work to do something now, but then you pay the benefits that you reap later is just awesome and it's easy compared to you saying, I'm going to take the easy way. And then you have to deal with all the ramifications and from taking the shortcuts and all the other stuff. And so most definitely. So do you have any final words or some lasting words that you want to leave to the listeners? Are those that are viewing this via YouTube?
Not really. I guess one thing I think about quite a bit, it actually keeps me kind of focused on the here and now and like what I want to create is I think a lot about death. I don't know how much other people do, but I think it's very important to think about your own mortality here because it keeps you focused on like, what is important to me? Like, what direction do I want to go? Because it might seem like life's going to go on forever, but it could be gone tomorrow. It could be gone in a year. It could be gone in 100 years. I don't know. But I always think about my own mortality and actually like my body being dead on the bed or on the couch or whatever. And it helps me like realize, oh, this is fleeting. This is something that's fluid. It's moving. So I need to enjoy this and cherish it and cherish our conversation, our time here right now together, because 5 minutes from now, it's going to be gone. And I won't be talking to you and you'll be going to do your thing. And it's like life is lived in the moment and it gives you so much more fulfillment and so much more engagement and so much more juice. So, but the weird part about it is death, thinking about death gives you that juice in a weird way. So I would encourage the listeners to think about their own death, their own mortality, and hopefully it'll focus them a little bit more on where they want to go and what's important to them.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I know I was about to let you go, but that comment brought up two main things for me to think about. One is, the pandemic, how it's changed so many people. And for me, some of that stuff has been super positive because it made people sit back and kind of like take stock of, just like you said, like, hey, there's people that are actually dying and no one is not susceptible to catching it because there's no label, no number, no nothing on it. What has been your experience there in Asia of how people are responding to it?
Well, Asia is a different culture than America. So they're very communal. They're very law abiding. So everyone follows the rules and they're used to pandemics. They've had many. So they were wearing masks even before February. So there's no problem. There's no COVID out here. It's fine. Everything's open. Everything's normal. So, but they're not the rebels. They're not the individuals the way Americans are. So, and that's the beautiful part about America. America does a lot of America builds all the cool stuff really because of this mentality of I can do it. I can build it me individually. So, but it doesn't mesh really well when you have a pandemic. But yeah, so out here it's been really like minor. But the funny thing about the pandemic is to me, the pandemic was like kind of a moot point. It wasn't a big deal to me because I think about death before February. I've been thinking about this since I was a kid. So it's like, yeah, I could die from getting hit by a car. I could die from COVID. I could get shot. I could die in a plane wreck. I could die from cancer. I could live to be 100. I don't know. So I'm always really grounded in like life is fleeting. It's okay. Don't sweat it. Do what you can and move forward. So it's always interesting to me how people kind of lost their mind over this thing. And I was just kind of laughing, like, this is kind of comical to me because people do die. It's just the way it goes. I'm going to die. You're going to die. We all die. So when you hold on to things too tightly, you don't allow space for what you really want to have come in. It's like Alan Watts has this great saying where he talks about like you're jumping off a cliff of a mountain and there's a rock falling with you and everyone's just grabbing onto the rock because it's like safe and it's secure for them, but you're both falling to the ground. So it's like, you might as well enjoy the ride, let go of the rock and enjoy the flight down. So, so that's my long-winded response to that. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like a lot of people were calling me in February and March and like, you gotta come home. You gotta come home. You're not gonna be able to get home. And I was like, no. You guys don't know. I know Americans. You guys are gonna lose your mind when you can't go to Starbucks. You're stuck at home. You're not used to this because you guys are. Everyone feels like Americans. We feel like it's our right to do whatever we want, and we're just spoiled brats at the end of the day. And I think this was a great lesson luckily it wasn't as deadly as it could be. It could have been 80% mortality. So, but Yeah, I was like, no, I'll be fine over here.
It's so funny because like when I was in South Korea, we experienced the same thing where people were calling us and we're like at the coffee shop and relaxing and communicating and talking and just having a good time, and people call us like, oh my God, you guys, be careful. They're, like, what's going, like, tell us how we're supposed to be responding right now, because we're over here with our little free Wi-Fi chilling and sipping on some coffee. And that's what people tend to do, is overreact. And then I came from Korea to the States for a different training. And I had a guy that was one of his first things. How are you guys? Are you safe over there? And I was like, you're going to probably die before we are, because guess what? We're right next to North Korea. And so they're not going to kill themselves because he's too narcissistic for that. So I'm like, but like literally, I don't think about that kind of stuff. When you said it, I actually thought about the same thing, because I too have always been like, well, I mean, life, it is what it is. It was like, people are like, are you afraid to die? No. I mean, because I've lived my life to the fullest of what I wanted to accomplish. So I'm not going to add more, make the grave richer than it already is for everybody's captured dreams and things that they shoulda, woulda, coulda, kind of thing. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I know I was cracking up about it, but we'll see what happens on the other side. Hopefully people woke up and we're a little bit clearer about, the direction we want to go and who you want to be. But time will tell.
Yeah. So how much longer you plan on being in Malaysia? Have you thought about that yet?
I don't know. I shoot from the hip. Like, I was like, well, I'm definitely not coming back before the election. I'm definitely not coming back, before inauguration and during the winter. So like maybe March, but maybe I'll go to Thailand. Maybe I'll go to Greece. I don't know. To see what opens up. But I literally live I live like 60 days out in my life, because I just have a backpack and have a laptop, cell phone. So I don't need much, but time.
Yep. Pick it up and go. Call it a day. Well, it definitely has been a pleasure, Jermane, having you on the show. And I greatly appreciate you reaching out to me and letting Decide to Move be one of those platforms that you actually come on, because you are, pretty much can be anywhere. And so I thank you for joining us today. And so I always say to my guests, bye for now. So thanks again, James, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Decide to Move podcast with Monica M.Bijoux. If you are ready to make a pivotal shift and take your destined position in the world, then schedule a free discovery call by going to www.decidetomove.com. For all links mentioned in today's show and to listen to previous episodes, go to www.decidetomovepodcast.com. And remember, we've all been delivered rotten fruit in our past. We can choose to chew on the rotten fruit trying to convince ourselves it's what we want, or we can become the fruits of our labor and create an incredible, fulfilling, and inspiring life and business out of it. You have what it takes to create the life you want.